Families struggle just to put food on their tables. The world on the brink of a hunger pandemic.
There are many people who suddenly find themselves out of work and having trouble making ends meet. And that means paying for basic things like food.
265 million people could face acute food shortages by the end of the year.
Many people live with food insecurity all the time, and this crisis will likely push many of them over the edge.
We've been in kind of a state of crisis. My name is Jenna O'Donnell, and I am the Community Engagement Manager at Hunger Free Vermont.
My name is Rain. My general role would be as an organizer, like Food Not Bombs, fundraisers for organizations that also do stuff with food insecurity.
I'm Chelsea Hewson. I live in Chicago, and I work with two organizations that work to improve the local food system. So that's Slow Food Chicago and Family Farmed and the Good Food Accelerator.
So Hunger Free Vermont is a advocacy and education nonprofit. We work across the entire state of Vermont, and our mission is to end the injustice of hunger and malnutrition.
Really, wherever I am, trying to find like a position where I can like use whatever resources what I'm working for has to distribute to people. And a lot of times that does include people's access to food.
Slow Food Chicago is actually part of a larger movement. So the Slow Food Network is all over the world, started in Italy in 1989, and it is all about promoting access to good, clean, and fair food for all. And then with Family Farmed, I work with our Good Food Accelerator program, and that is an accelerator program for early stage consumer packaged goods brands. So to help them scale up, get into new markets, get better distribution, and with the same goal of improving access to good food.
So there are a lot of different wonky definitions of what food insecurity legally means. But for how I view it, it's someone's inability to be able to access the types of food that they want or the amount of food that they want.
The term food insecurity describes any situation in which someone's access to food is hindered, limited, or I guess speaking more casually, not on par with the access that most people have.
It's about that access to, or the lack of access to good quality, affordable, and nutritious food.
Food is such an incredibly personal thing. Everyone has different nutritional needs. Everyone comes at it from very different perspectives. And we all should be able to access, like I said, the amount of food that we need and we want and the types of food that we need or want.
People's perception of their access to food influences the things that they purchase as well. So just understanding like the way people's diets when they do have food are also built on a foundation of food insecurity.
There's been a huge rise of food insecurity with especially the advent of COVID-19, the economic shutdown.
There's a lot happening, locally, regionally. There's, as we've seen, there's been a lot of issues with supply chain. And so I think a lot of it's shifted the focus to more local and regional models of food distribution, which I think is very important.
People are experiencing like increased food scarcity because the supply chain is so fragile. A lot of places either closed immediately, and that could have been someone's most easy way to get food, or things just aren't coming in, which is obviously the case for a lot of places. And then in addition to that, people who are already on, supplemental services, maybe like a food kitchen or whatever, have not been open or have had trouble getting donations as well.
And it's interesting because hunger and food insecurity, and I'm going to use them interchangeably, they are both the cause of and caused by a number of different things. So why this happens is a really complicated response.
Unfortunately, with this pandemic, as we know, the unemployment has gone way up. People are losing their jobs, and when you lose your job, you lose your income, and sometimes that means that you can't afford quality food.
A lot of it is tied to economics. So are folks able to afford the food they want? And obviously, paying for food is not the only way that people get food. I do acknowledge that gardens are really important, sharing with your neighbors are really important, but the ability to be able to go out to a grocery store and get your food is really critical to how most of us are accessing our nutrition.
If you were living somewhere where you took the bus to get to the grocery store or some sort of public transport, maybe that's not a safe option anymore. So your options become a little bit more limited. And I think there are a lot of reasons underlying, causes for that. I think one of the big ones is food deserts, and that's where there aren't grocery stores, there isn't any food, any affordable quality food in convenient, traveling distance from residents in a certain community.
So when you have everything shut down, or even folks are just nervous about going out, that's a huge cause for the big spike in food insecurity. Up here in Vermont, their numbers range a little bit, but they're estimating about 46% increase in the number of folks who are being affected by all of this and experiencing food insecurity.
And this is affecting people that are living in food deserts. It's affecting people that are living in poverty. And it's affecting those that are newly unemployed, unfortunately.
Another population we're really concerned about are folks who are older adults for, again, a variety of reasons. It's a vulnerable population, so a lot of folks either are not able to go out and get food, or they are understandably very nervous to do so and perhaps putting themselves medically at risk. And it's a population that already experiences barriers in terms of transportation, in terms sometimes if you're on a limited income, you might not be able to afford all of these things.
The same groups are the same groups of people who are affected by most things like this. People of color, Black people, gender nonconforming and trans people, people who are disabled or are mentally ill and have, struggle with access to food already because of those limitations that are only limitations because of how fraudulent the system is. And then, creates this moralized reality where it's minorities' fault for not being able to access things that they need, especially during such a difficult time.
There have been a number of different cuts by a variety of different federal administrations. There's a lot of different thinking about how these programs should be administered, what kind of restrictions are on them, and how do people try to cut funding and undercut that security net that should be there for all of us.
This pandemic has made people think creatively about food distribution and about getting food to those that need it the most.
For the folks who are more directly impacted, a lot of it is folks who might have been right on the edge. We're seeing a lot of that, especially with the economic shutdown, and it's creating some really vulnerable industries. So folks who worked, ironically, in the food industry, restaurants are shut down, catering events, all of those are shut, so they've lost their income. One thing that we're struggling with at Hunger Free Vermont, a lot of the folks that are being impacted have actually never experienced these kind of problems too. So it's this whole new population who's never had to seriously think about where are they getting their food if they're not able to afford it. Where are the food shelves? What are the federal nutrition programs that might be a really great asset to them? But they've never had to navigate those, so they might not even be aware of some of the resources that are available.
A lot of farms have had to switch up their farms, and food producers and businesses have had to switch their models and pivot and figure out how to adapt to these changing circumstances. And so I've been inspired by what people have been doing to get food to those in need.
There are a lot of organizations that are doing work to distribute food to the community, which is great.
Locally, with farmers markets, so Green City Market is a big farmers market in Chicago, and they switched to an online model, and they're doing delivery now.
On a national level, there are a few grants out there that are doing a lot of great emergency, redistribution of wealth.
Slow Food Chicago has partnered with another organization called Advocates for Urban Agriculture, and we have been providing grants to local farms to help them, get up and running in this new environment. And so I think it's, pretty cool that they've been able to adapt and to figure out these direct-to-consumer models and get more food to the people that need it.
There are all these great nutrition programs like Meals on Wheels, and they can actually come to you and bring you really nutritious, wonderful food. There are programs like SNAP, this Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's historically been called food stamps. Thankfully, now it's been rebranded as SNAP. But that's a program where, based on your income, you can get benefits or money loaded onto a little debit card. And that's a way that you can go out and buy food. So there's all these different programs that are set up to help support folks. And it's really critical that they're actually here now. But then how do we get those to those different populations, especially, like I said, older adults, folks who have never experienced this in the past, or folks who might have been right on that brink. There's also the Women's, Infant, and Children Program, more commonly known as WIC, and that serves pregnant women and children up to the age of 6.
Nationally, Feeding America, I know, is doing a lot of work with food pantries across the country.
Another really important federal nutrition program that certainly I took for granted until I started working at Hunger Free Vermont is the importance of school meals. So it's the National School Lunch Program. There's a National School Breakfast Program. There's also after school meals and summer meals. So the idea is that you're supporting children throughout the entire year where they are. What's really amazing in Vermont, and I think in many places across the country, they're serving all families, regardless of how much money the parents might be making, which is especially key when some folks might have lost income or been on furlough. It really doesn't matter. It's just recognizing that all of us deserve to have access to nutritious, delicious food. And so schools are serving meals to all kids 0 to 18, which is really powerful. Rally behind this really essential service that schools are providing, not only to the children, but also to the families. There are so many families who depend on those meals every day, breakfast, lunch. They can get snacks, they can get free fresh fruits and vegetables. With schools being closed, that support is no longer there. So that's a huge hit for some folks nutritionally. It's also a huge hit for all of the parents that are trying to juggle things, and now they have to figure out how do you find the time to get these meals for these kids. And so these schools providing these meals is such a critical support. If you are interacting with a family who has kids 0 to 18, make sure that they're filling out their school meal application. While it's wonderful that these schools are able to provide meals to kids, all kids right now, that's actually not normally the circumstance. A lot of times, depending on where you are, a school is able to provide those meals only if folks qualify, again, based on income. So when you have enough families filling out the applications, a school might be able to actually hit a certain level of eligibility. And A, you're getting your family meals. B, you're also supporting the community, because if you hit that certain level, they can actually then qualify to serve everybody. So one thing that we're really encouraging folks, especially recognizing that so many people's economic circumstances have changed, and it's a great way to support your community.
And then there are also a lot of DIY organizations that are doing that work now, which is super cool.
So it's just about figuring out who those people and organizations are and what support they need.
If there's an opportunity for you to advocate for, good access to hot food and vegetables in your neighborhood, then that is a good thing to do.
Just look at what's happening in your community and figure out whether You can donate to an organization or volunteer with an organization that is doing good work to produce good food, to distribute good food.
Right now, I know that it's really difficult for people to find volunteers. So really hitting up any organization.
The people doing that work are very important, and figuring out how we can support the ones that are on the front lines.
It's really basic, critical things of raising awareness, making sure people are aware of these programs, and making sure that people are understanding that these programs are available to support all of us. All of us deserve the right to food. So there shouldn't be those barriers. There shouldn't be any shame or stigma in doing what you need to make sure that your nutritional needs are met.
Asking people if they need help, if there's a way that you can contribute that is contactless, if you do have the ability to go outside right now.
Just talking about, hey, have you heard about these school meals thing? Hey, have you heard about SNAP? It's available to all of us. Maybe you should consider applying for that.
I think on a longer term scale, people who are our age, trying to break into businesses that benefit people in our communities, like on a very basic level, like grocery stores.
These programs should be there for all of us. They've been shown to end hunger, and we need to invest in them because, like I said, they're there for all of us, regardless of our income, our gender, our status. Like, they're there for all Americans. Historically, it was actually shown when there was federal investment in things like SNAP, it actually worked. Back in the 80s, the US government put a lot of serious investment into federal nutrition programs, and then they did a study and they found hunger was basically eliminated. This big, really intangible, scary thing, we know how to fix it.